see. Just move the slide here. Yeah, thanks a lot. So welcome everyone to our site event of South Collaboration, which is organized and co-hosted by GIZ and ITU, also the Green Digital Action Track. And we are very happy to welcome you on site in Belém in the Digital Innovation Pavilion, as well as online today. We want to present today climate experiences from countries, enable South-South exchange, and invite everyone to exchange perspectives between Africa and Latin America, Brazil. So welcome everyone. I thank all our partners, colleagues, and guests to be here today and share their perspectives and discuss use cases, solutions that we are implementing as GIZ through the Data Governance in Africa initiative, share experiences on this, how to leverage digital solutions on climate action, and also exchange views on how a just launched initiative by ITU, GIZ, the European Green Digital Coalition, Brazil, and other partners, how this one can facilitate South-South exchange. But first of all, I would like to invite Tomasz Lamanauskas, Deputy Secretary General from ITU, to give some opening remarks, setting the scene on how this new initiative, the Green Digital Action Hub, can bridge the transition through South-South collaboration. The floor is yours, Tomasz. And also, yeah, thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having, for everyone for joining us here online today. And this is, I think, for us, this event today aptly demonstrates what we need after this COP, and how we need to implement some of the discussions in this COP. So I think, first of all, there's some things that happen here that I kind of set to the framing. First, really very strongly linking the digital agenda with the climate agenda. I'm very proud of the work that we did here, launching a policy brief on NDCs, natural determined contributions, and looking how they integrate digital. And we saw that they do. At least the ones we reviewed, and now it's here, so with that work, 53 of them, okay, with 90% of them integrated, like I already mentioned, digital. Actually, mentioned digital around the things that we will be talking today, how to do monitoring, reporting, assessment with digital, digital technologies. So people recognize it's needed. The question is how to move from recognition is needed to actually using it. And I think that's a big discussion today, and then seeing these country case studies is really great. And I think JZ is really supporting that is really important, because I think now we already done that work of advocating. I was saying we no longer need to convince people these technologies are needed. And now that people say, okay, so how do we actually do it? So we convince. And here, of course, we're trying to do that through some also infrastructural elements. So we created together with JZ as well. So what we call Green Digital Action Hub. So thank you very much for being great partners there. In the way, for me, is basically the way to organize the joint work and making sure that we really amplify each other's work, so we don't do that individually. And that great work that we're already doing in the countries and the countries are doing is really done together. So different partners are being brought, bring their assets and their capabilities together. And this is now basically a result of the work that has been done for at least 2 years on what we call the Green Digital Action Initiative, where in the beginning we have 40 partners joining, 50. Last year we had a Green Digital Action Declaration with more than 80 countries endorsing, 80 countries stakeholders endorsing. So we build that political commitment to now, but now we are at the COP, which is implementation COP, and I think we actually was very apt to be implemented. So political commitment is there, people are convinced that digital is important, now with how we implement. And we hold in Green Digital Action Hub that we launched together on Monday will definitely be that hub. And Green Digital Action Hub indeed is supposed to also, so the things here is really build a joint strategy, joint work plan to really help the countries around the world to leverage digital for the climate agenda and give those tools. I think, but also, so I firmly believe that in any change management, you need to shine the light on what's working. And I think that's why having specific country case studies representing is really important, because we're not demonstrating that we're not just kind of having the theory, we already have working examples, and we can take those working examples on total scale. So this is what this session is about for me today, how to kind of really now take that political commitment, take that recognition in digital, really implement with already having examples of what works. Thanks a lot, and back to you. Moderate online, no? So thank you.
Thank you a lot to Belém. And we would like to invite you now to get to know data for climate solutions that we are implementing in Sub-Saharan Africa, together with our great team from digital transformation centers from South Africa over Kenya to Senegal. And I would like to share these solutions. But first of all, who is behind the Data Governance in Africa initiative? It is the Team Europe action is being implemented since 2023 by GSZ and 5 other countries, European countries, together with the African Union. And today we will focus on one of the components, which is on data use cases and data flows, specifically to support countries in leveraging data and AI for climate action. Let's have a look how the data for climate solutions are tackling climate challenges and supporting countries in aligning with the global climate architecture. As you can see here, these are the areas countries need to deliver for the Paris Agreement. So on the one hand, it's the global goals, national efforts, transparency, and the global stocktake, just to give a short overview where the approaches that we will present in a minute are like which challenges they are addressing. We will have a look at a climate data information platform, which is supporting countries on their national efforts on reporting, managing the NDCs in order to enhance mitigation efforts and also supporting the mobilization of climate finance. The same applies for a carbon registry that we will have a look on later, which is supporting carbon markets in order to mobilize climate finance as well. And then last but not least, we will also present a digital MRE system, the carbon lens approach, which is supporting the transparency and reporting on NDCs and greenhouse gas emissions. Now let's have a look how these solutions interact with each other. We have the different approaches just mentioned before that are supporting countries for different, let's say, climate challenges on delivering climate reporting, NDC reporting, enhancing climate finance and climate finance tracking, and also enabling participation in global carbon markets. So we have the climate data information platform, which you see on top, the bubble on top, which is supporting the NDC reporting, climate finance tracking. Then it is informed, for example, can be informed by carbon sink data, which are delivered by the carbon lens approach, which we'll have a look at in a minute, and which also interacts with the African carbon registry, which is receiving data from or can receive data from the other platforms and create a whole climate data value chain chain interacting with each other if the components are being implemented. Yeah, the platform aggregates and harmonizes the climate data across ministries. If there are, let's say, fragmented data, it can deliver high quality forest and CO2 data, and then the registry translates the verified data into recognized carbon assets that can be tracked and traded. Through these integrated approaches, which can be implemented either as a single solution or, let's say, in a more comprehensive approach, as a unified approach, we try to support countries in measuring, reporting, and monitoring climate mitigation actions through improved data governance. Now, having given this overall overview, let's have a look at the climate data information platform. Let's have a look at the next slide, just to introduce how which challenges partner countries are facing, which is fragmented climate data systems and processing. And in order to have this unified approach to close silos between different sectors, between different data sources, we are working on a unified, let's say, a one-stop climate data platform, which can then track national greenhouse gas emissions, the national climate targets, and climate finance. And this could look like this, let's say, a visual that we are aiming for. And to give you this overall approach, here you have an impression, let's say, an overall impression what the climate data platform can deliver. We are implementing this, let's say, more general approach, this global approach in different countries, from Senegal to South Africa and Rwanda, where we will have a look at afterwards. They can be localized to each country context, either on greenhouse gas emissions, NDC reporting, and or climate finance. So let's have a look at the country examples. My colleagues will guide you through the different use cases from the countries, explaining how these solutions can be localized. So I would like to hand over to South Africa. Please, Bonalo.
Good evening. It's evening this side. Thank you so much. So we're going to talk about the use case in South Africa, which we call CBT, which is Climate Budgeting Tool. Just to give you a background of how it came about, South African climate response is rooted in a strong policy and legal foundation. National Climate Change Response 2011 and Climate Act 2024 creates a framework for transitioning to a low carbon and climate resilient economy. Through national determined contributions, South Africa commits to ambitious emission reduction and resilient goals. But achieving these goals require more than strategy. It requires integration between policy, planning, and finance. This is where climate finance becomes critical, turning commitment into measurable actions through better resource allocation and accountability mechanism. The key takeaway is climate policy gives direction, but implementation begins when finance and planning system are aligned. In this coming slide, which is institutionalizing a climate budgeting taking tool, we talk about how we implement climate finance accountability. To make climate finance visible and measurable, South Africa is institutionalizing the climate budgeting tagging tool, which is a system that allows government to identify, to classify, and track climate-relevant expenditure across all government sectors. This process is led by National Treasury, supported by DFFE, which is Department of Forestry, Fishery and Environment, which the climate policy sits with. And with GIZ is supporting to build the system around this. CBT, which is climate budgeting tool, strengthens transparency and it improves coordination and enhance accountability, showing where climate funds are flowing and whether they are achieving the intended goals. As we move from processes to technology, the next slide is about digitizing the system to improve efficiency, access, and decision-making in real life. The CBT system creates a financial transparency needed to turn policy into accountable implementation. Now, in this slide, where we're talking about digitizing climate finance implementation, one would ask, if we are saying a system, why are we then building a system? A system in this context, it was a system that is under Excel sheet, and that's where we decide together with National Treasury and DFFE to say that we can build a system that can bring much more with data. Rather than just having data that is sitting there, we can be able to analyze this data and derive information out of it. Digitizing the climate budgeting tool will represent the next phase, which is transforming a manual process into a digital public infrastructure that will be for climate finance. This system, we call it a web-based CBT tool, which integrates with other government systems, and it's a real-time tracking for climate-related expenditure. It automates reporting for transparency and data-driven decision to guide for future policy and for budgeting. And GIZ support this process through technical design, system architecture, capacity building, and a sustainability planning, ensuring that the national ownership and long-term use.
Thank you so much, Mulalo. You want to finish? Sorry.
Oh, yes. I was saying
The
that
last sentence.
This digitalization aligns with COP30 theme as well, which is advancing climate action and strengthening multilateralism. Using this DPI to ensure climate governance, to ensure transparency and an impact. So lastly, digitalization turns policy into practice and converting data into decisions and commitments into measurable results. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mulalo. So the case of South Africa shows how the climate data information platform can be used for climate finance tracking. In Senegal, there is a similar approach on NDC tracking, but let us introduce our colleague Kader from Senegal. Please, Kader.
Yes,
the floor is yours.
thank you very much. Thank you, Julia. Good evening. My name is. Thank you. Do you hear me? No. Do you hear me? Okay, yes. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Abdul Kader. I'm delighted to share with you the carbon lens approach in Senegal. The approach combines open satellite imagery and forest inventory data for accurate mapping of carbon sinks that can be used for better forest management and evidence-based climate action planning, supporting countries in tracking progress toward their NDC and sustainable land use goals. In Senegal, Carbon Lens project provides cost-effective tools for countries to monitor also forest carbon stock and to support the achievement of climate target NDC and sustainable forest and climate management. The role of data is to combine satellite imagery, AI, and local engagement to automate costly and timely manual data collection. Increase also accuracy and effectiveness of forest carbon stock monitoring and facilitate scalability across geographies and regions. Next slide. Yes. Initially, the country adopted a rather cumbersome methodology. More manual collection of biomass data per year, including carbon emission related to travel. And partial, at the end, we have the partial view of carbon sinks mapped for specific region. That is a very good challenge in Senegal. But now, look how data and AI are simplifying data collection and climate reporting in the future. When you combine geospatial data and with field data collection, and also we can have biomass data forest. We combine this model to have a high carbon stock using high carbon stock approach AI model, and to make sure we have reducing also all the bias we have, and we can go to have a very good model for reducing environmental footprint, for also having less manual biomass data collection per year, also enhancing climate impact, more accurate and comprehensive carbon sink map. At the end, we can have our national carbon sink map like this, like a carbon lens. For example, when you see this dashboard, we can get every biomass data. We can get every data we need for stock carbon, and for each class we have the quantity of the stock carbon in this dashboard. When you click for each region, you can have it, and for when you need also to have more information of how we can do it, what is the process, you can scan this QR code and to make sure you can read the full story about that. Next slide. But the end, what we need also to make sure of the NDC data on carbon sinks can inform the Senegalese climate information platform, because at the end we need to have the climate information platform, and we include also the high carbon stock approach like our carbon lens, and to make sure we have all the data we need for NDC data, for also helping the government to have a better decision making on climate. Thank you very much, and I give the floor to Julia. Thank you.
Thank you, Kader, for introducing the approach in Senegal, combining the carbon lens for carbon sink monitoring enabled by AI, and the climate data information platform that could be connected or can be connected and support NDC monitoring and reporting in the end. Now let's have a look at Kenya. Rose, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Julia, for the introduction. Yes, so here we are presenting the National Carbon Registry, and first is to understand why are we focusing on the National Registry and how is it embedded in the climate warehouse. So as you can see, it is one of the layers with which is part of the climate warehouse vision, and it's part of the country registry, but in itself as a registry, it is still interoperable to the UNFCCC, and also it being just a registry layer in itself is connected to other layers, be it the physical layer, the database layer, and also with time and with expansion, we will be able even to extend up to the service layer. So whilst understanding now why the National Registry is embedded within the climate warehouse vision, we can move to the next slide. Please, let's move to the next slide. And okay, and whilst we give Yulia time to come back, but in the next slide, we will be able to understand also why the Africa Carbon Registry, as we call it, ARC, that is ARC, we'll be able to understand what is the purpose for it. So it is a digital public good, and this enables African countries and also even beyond to be able to track their carbon credits, account for it in line with Article 6. Now, the beauty of this solution is that it is also embraces a modular approach where there are different modules, and this allows for extension or even customization if needed. Now, we started implementation of this registry at a Kenyan level, and we progressed to the East African level, but you will come to realize that it is a digital public good that can also be applicable even at the African continent and even beyond, which means beyond the African continent. And currently we are doing it in line with different stakeholders who stand to benefit from the implementation of the African registry for carbon. The visualization will just give you a brief look on, you get a brief look of the feel of the registry. Onto this slide, you will see now, in just apart from us coming up with the Africa registry for carbon, we also bundle it up together with a toolkit. And this toolkit basically helps one documents the entire process for establishing a carbon registry. It's very vital because countries are at different level and they are still grappling with how to implement and be in line with the Article 6.2. And you will see throughout the outline of our toolkit that we document this step by step. They're able to understand the different modules that are needed, the regulation level that is in their country. And what do we learn from all this? We learn that it is very important for both the public and the private to be in joint partnership, to take joint ownership, to make use of their resources, and also to promote sustainability in order to make the project successful. So I will yield back to Julia to continue the session. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot to you, Rose, to Kade, and to Mulalo. Presenting how the general approaches are being implemented in the countries and contextualized to the local conditions, needs, challenges, and frameworks. So overall, the learnings that we can share is that AI and database approaches can accelerate the climate objectives of countries, but it is important to enhance sustainability, for example, the sustainability of the solution by also having capacity building and setting up a clear data governance structure, for example, to enable data sharing and data security. Rose mentioned public and private actors need to work hand in hand. And last but not least, we also think about how can we use the solutions developed in an open source approach also in other countries. How can we learn from each other? How can we replicate approaches also elsewhere? And this is what I would like to hand over into the to Belém, to the panel, where some of our partners, implementing partners, but also public partners are sitting. So I hand over to Anna from ITU, taking over the moderation now on site, and thanking all of my colleagues and the partners who are implementing these solutions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Julia, and thank you to all the speakers online. That was truly inspiring, and I'm sure that we all learned a lot. I hope that our panelists were also paying attention, because we want to hear from you what were your insights from what we heard from these approaches. So for this roundtable, I would like to first start by welcoming who would be the speakers for this panel. So online, we have the great pleasure of having Alexandre Moraes from Anatel, Brazil. In person here, we have Ian Muriati. So please, can I invite you to accompany us here in the stage? He is CTO of Burst Carbon. And then we also have Sonia Verdao. Sonia, if you can also join us here, we would appreciate it. She works for GIZ Brazil. So if we can welcome our panelists, so we can start. Thank you very much. Okay, well, can we see the Miro? Can we see the panelists online?
Yes.
Alexander, if you don't mind, we would like to start with a question for you. So, what is the lesson learned that you heard from these approaches? What type of inspiration do you think that it can be taken forward? That is one question. And then the second one is, you are a partner of the Green Digital Action Fund. So we would like to maybe pose a question to you on how do you think the hub and communities in Brazil could benefit from these exchanges, from sharing these solutions from other countries, and if that could also be replicated in Brazil. So I give the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you for the very kind invitation. I'm really sorry that I cannot be there in Belém with you. I'm close by in Brazil, but as you can see, not close enough. Well, I think that what we can learn from these projects that the GIZ and the colleagues from Africa very kindly shared are that there is this common thread of the use of data to guide action. We in Brazil have also been working on this. We have a recent project in partnership with the Inter-American Development Bank, in which we are trying to measure the GHG emissions. This goes in line with something that Thomas mentioned also on his speech on the opening of this event, and that we share, and many of the partners who spoke here share, as I heard, which are the ambitions to impact the negotiations and ultimately the NDCs. And this is something that very clearly we cannot do without using data. So the colleagues mentioned the use of DPI, the use of satellite imagery, the use of national carbon registries, and these are really amazing efforts. And it's something that really derives from data and trying to reach impactful solutions. So about the second question about the hub in Brazil, Anatel is really glad to join this effort by the ITU, and we are really happy that GIZ and other institutions joined us in this project. I believe that it's going to be very impactful, not only for Brazil, but for the whole region, to have this global center and global hub for joining ICT projects with climate impact for both mitigation and adaptation here in the region. I guess that the main benefit for this hub is to, of course, drive from different experiences and identify the synergies. I see that both Brazil and I'm sure other countries in Latin America shares some of the challenges that the colleagues in Africa mentioned, and we can of course also learn from their experiences and to implement some of these projects and to scale up using the hub for driving global solutions. Of course, the NDCs paradigm consists of initiatives that are determined by each of these countries, so we have to have that in mind. But it doesn't hurt to learn from different experiences, especially from countries in the south, which share some of our challenges. So I guess this is the main issues that I wanted to bring up. Of course, this is COP30, and it has this main line of the mutirão, which is this joint efforts. So it's really in line with the effort of the GDA hub, which is to bring everyone together to drive these solutions in global scale.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alexandre. And just to stay on that topic, and as you were saying, to try to leverage that mutirão approach, I would like to say in Brazil, Sonia, you work with GIZ Brazil. So we wanted to ask you, what are the key takeaways that you have from the presented solutions? And also, what could others learn from the Brazilian approach that you have seen? Thank you.
Hello. Okay. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. And I also wanted to start with not to answer directly the question, but to actually underline that also this is the time where we connect the first time with our colleagues on the D4D Innovation Hub, Sören, Julia. We have talked already over a year, But I think now it finally came to concrete actions during the time of COP implementation to actually launch the Green Digital Innovation Action Center. And I want to thank also to connect us with Antal and ITU. So I think this was the lessons learned. I think I also draw from all these presentations. We need to align, we need to actually connect the different databases to support the policy monitoring, implementation, and for a long-term sustainability of our impacts, right? The one thing I actually missed, which I think is crucial, is that the trust in data, trust in different institutions. Because in Brazil, we already did different institutions. The availability of data is maybe not that challenging like in Africa. So we have this data availability. We have already established platforms. For instance, GLZ also supported the development of the RENI organization at the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, which is a platform to access greenhouse gas emissions from the public and the private sector. And this was not only about numbers, it was first about trust, to that everybody had trust to share the data, and then also to base decisions on these data collected. As well, we also supported the development of a subnational monitoring digital platform for the subnational environmental ministries, ABEMA, they are called. It's an association of all these environment ministries on subnational level, where we try to also digitally monitor the climate commitments. Over the last 2 years, we were actually developing or supporting the development of the climate national plan of Brazil. And now we're going into the phase of monitoring the plan, also with the digital monitoring tool, which should also provide access not only to government and private companies, but also to the public as a whole. And again, I think here the issue of trust plays a big role, which I missed a little bit in the presentations because it sounds so technical and sometimes easy if you put the charts out. But now in Brazil, we also have different ministries hosting different platforms. And it was not easy, or we are still in these discussions, how to align, how to make them interconnecting, which ministry hosts which platform. So I think we are still having this challenge, and therefore I think to have this international connection of the different hubs, I think it's a great idea to actually share this knowledge on how to actually align these different climate digital platforms. Yeah, maybe I leave it first.
Thank you very much, Sonia. And what an interesting perspective you're bringing, because indeed we hadn't heard about this data trust issue. And we know that it is, for many countries, a priority now to establish better data governance systems. The question about data sovereignty is also big on the agenda, and maybe it's something that can be taken forward for next stops for the work that different partners are doing. So thank you very much for bringing that perspective. So if you don't mind, I will now like to turn to Ian. Ian, I know that you worked significantly on building this African carbon registry. So the question that we had for you is to try to understand, from the name, we would assume that it is only applicable for African countries. But do you think that it could also be something that can be transformed and applied to other countries that, for example, Latin American countries could also build and have a similar experience? What do you think?
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone who's been able to join, both physically and those who are joining us online. Again, Ian Mutai is my name. And thank you very much for the question and for the great submissions that you've made as well. I like that you talked about trust and really what national registries are infrastructures for trust on a national level. And what we're building may have the regional name, and it may sound like it's an African thing, but if you look at it fundamentally, then the core infrastructure and the core blocks that are used to build it are fully aligned with guidelines given from Article 3 from the Paris Agreement and the Article 6. So essentially, it's a tool that I believe can be replicated very, very, very well and can have a lot of usability in contexts out of Africa. It's been tested out in Africa and it's working very well, but I believe that it can be scaled outside Africa, and being that the core blocks align very well with the guidelines given by UNFCCC, then it's something that can be ported to any other country. Well, Rose was making the submission earlier. She mentioned that we've taken a modular approach where the different modules. I thought for a moment that it's a bit hot here. I thought for a moment that I'm big stuff. Yeah. So if you look at how we build it up, is like in such a way that it's very, very modular. If you look at the process of getting the national carbon project out, there's critical steps that are part of that form the journey of getting a project authorized for Article 6 and whatnot. It starts, for example, with a simple journey like getting a project concept note where you capture the details of a project, you understand which sector it is in, what mitigation activities it's going to undertake, what's the crediting period, which registry are you going to be using this for. That data is being captured in a modular project concept note module. That goes to the next step where you now submit your project design documents and together with other documentation that will support the implementation of that particular project, understanding of what the context of the project would be. That then leads to what now countries call the letter of approval, where a project is then approved to transact under the carbon markets of that particular country. And then goes the next step, which then talks about now authorization for Article 6.2, where if a country has a collaborative approach, bilateral agreement with another country, essentially what then happens there is that you're able to track which of the projects have been authorized, or these credits actually transferred, or they used to the right manner. Is there any aspect of greenwashing or crediting that's happening in there? And what we've done as well is map it to the climate action data transfer. And all of this data then goes into the metadata layer of the climate action data hub through the CHIA network, and you're able to have a full trustless sort of ecosystem that gives countries a lot of credibility and trust. So it's, as I said, it's an infrastructure for trust. And I firmly believe that despite the fact that it may be branded as African, it's not necessarily tied to that geography. It can be ported to any part of the world. And I think it's as relevant to the Amazon as it is to, say, even the Congo Basin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian. And also, just to say, on this African perspective, I know that we still have some colleagues from South Africa, Karina, online. So I was wondering if maybe we can invite her to also share her perspectives from the South African approach. If you think that it is important to localize these solutions so that they respond to the country needs that have been identified. So, for example, through NDCs or through other type of strategies that can be relevant. So, can I give you the floor, Karina? Sorry, we cannot hear you. Just give us 1 second.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation. And yes, I think, it is important to recognize that countries are at different levels of, achieving climate change and also implementing digital transformation. And I think for that fact, localization becomes very critical. We must also recognize that, policies have been evolving, and I'm just going to give an example. For example, in South Africa, we've had a number of policies, which all of them were running towards us recently introducing the Climate Change Act. And as those policies were being introduced, digital solutions were coming to the fore as well. So we are now sitting with fragmented systems in some instances, but also it's systems that are already being used in the different ministries, in the different departments, which is, not systems that you can just overnight discard. So what is important for me is then to say, how do we then achieve interoperability? What are some of the common technical principles that we should then adopt as countries so that, interoperability, within countries and across countries becomes, possible. But I think also to think around the change management aspects of us introducing digital transformation solutions, you know, what would be the best, because at the end of the day, we don't want digital solutions that cannot be adopted. So we need to then start saying what are the things that we can learn from each other in terms of getting, one, implementing the solutions, but number two, getting them introduced and adopted. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Fiona. And I'm so happy that you left us with that last message about learning from each other, because that's a good segue to the second question that we have for our panelists. But since we don't have much time for this section, I would kindly ask all panelists to please keep it short for the responses. So the question that we have for you is basically, how can the hub that we just launched, that GIZ is part of, that the European Green Digital Coalition is a part of, that ITU is a part of, how can we be a stronger catalyst for South-South exchanges? So you were talking about, for example, Karina, about how it is important to learn, to have those dialogues so that we get inspired in a bit from all of these different solutions that are being implemented in one country, and then maybe explore how that could look into another policies and those pathways that you highlighted. So I would like to pose this question to all panelists, and I will give you maximum 2 minutes to each one of you to maybe share your perspectives on this.
Okay, you mentioned learning from each other. I would put scaling training, because if we have this connected hubs, we can also connect trainings and receive one training at the same time together, while we still exchange learning, of course. Improve compatibility. We even look into connecting national systems with each other. That would be the next step, to have regional platforms, etc. And harmonize these methods, right? And again, not only learn from the digital data platforms, but also behind we have the inter-ministerial connectivity, like, you know, the climate governance. So building inter-ministerial climate committees to already have the environment to connect these platforms. And last but not least, we're also running a global startup incubator in GIZ. It's called Catalyst, where we also pilot in Brazil. And I think we can also connect more global programs to this digital innovation hub idea.
Thank you very much. That's definitely inspiring, and some good ideas here that we are going to take forward, I'm sure. So Ian, what do you think?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the first one is, I'll just echo what she said, which is knowledge sharing. She did mention, I think earlier, that those different ministries and working together has been something that they have been looking to undertake very well. These are lessons that we've learned when we're doing the implementation of Kenya's National Registry, for example. So we had to physically get a whole of government approach, where all the ministries then collaborate to make sure that this then is adopted. There's the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of ICT, and all of this then come together. And these are learnings that I think very soft learnings that can come through the hub, and there will be a lot of knowledge exchange that is very meaningful that could happen in that hub. The second thing that I think about is also opportunity to as well scale projects, scale these solutions that have been implemented in the different parts of the world. If you look at, for example, the climate, what you're looking at as satellite imagery and whatnot, those are solutions that are needed in Africa as well. And here in Brazil, for example, and in Amazon, you've been able to do that very well. So I look at this hub as a potential sort of, can bring together the different solutions and actually give a lot of visibility on what exists in which part of the continent or of the world, and then these different solutions can then be easily picked by countries that actually need them, as opposed to re-engineering the wheel, reinventing the wheel, which you've seen a lot of, where you find one solution has been done 10 times. And I think having a single hub then brings together all of this, and then it brings makes a lot of sense from a regional or from a global perspective. The other point that I'm thinking about right now is on technical collaboration. We all have different strengths and different sort of the variables are very different. Africa, for example, has a lot of Amazon, for example, has a lot of forest cap is a big deal, and I know the innovations that have happened a lot would be around things to do with maybe remote monitoring of the forest cover and whatnot. So, being that we are very unique in how things are distributed globally, we're able to leverage the strengths of different regions. So, there's a lot of research that has gone into forestry here that can be leveraged in other parts of the world. So there's a lot of technical collaboration that could happen from one continent to the other, based on the different dynamics that would be relevant in those spheres. So it is that these are the three that I'm thinking would be that come top of mind, but there's definitely a place for collaboration between the two regions.
Thank you so much, Ian. And I really appreciate that you were very concrete in the asks for this hub. And that's also an opportunity, but also a bit of pressure for us that we will need to deliver on enabling that exchanges, that connectivity, focusing our resources, and all of us coming together for the messages that you're leaving us with. So let me go back to online. Alexandria, I don't know if you can still hear us. Do you think that I can invite you to also share your perspectives?
Okay, thank you again. Yes, for me, I think one of the most important thing. Sorry. It was not my turn.
You can go ahead, Kawina, and maybe we can invite you afterwards.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, Anna.
Hello. Okay, Alexandra, we can hear you. So if you want to go ahead, please. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I heard from South Africa, for instance, about the difficulties in interoperability of different systems. I heard from Sonia mentioning even within the Brazilian government that there is a multiplicity of efforts with different systems. Maybe it's sometimes tackling the same solutions. I just like to remember that the multilateral collaboration can be a solution to this. The ITU, which is part of this session, is a full-fledged standard developing organization, and maybe we can leverage this from them and from the Green Digital Action Hub to try to standardize some of these solutions. It doesn't mean that it has to be something that fits all, but maybe to have one major solution standardized, and then countries can identify their peculiarities and drive from there. So it's one way forward from the different approaches that I heard here, and I just like to mention this way in which we can tackle some of these issues. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Alexandra. And I think that's a good also segue into our last panelist. Kawina, did you hear us? Yes, Kawina. Okay, well then I'm sure if there are any technical issues, she can understand if we miss her insights for this last question and head to the last section of our session today, which is the closing remarks from Björn Suring. He is a senior officer at the DG Klima of the European Commission. So I hand over to Soren for his closing remarks. Thank you very much to all the panelists, and I hope that you can stay for this last section.
Thank you so much. So I think this was a very rich session, and maybe some lessons we've learned. So the first, I think, was the South-South cooperation. So there's a lot to be learned between, say, Brazil, South Africa, Kenya, Senegal, because they are practitioners. So when practitioners learn from each other, I think that's the most effective. The second, I think we've heard a lot, is the need for scale up. So I think the Green Digital Action Hub can play a real critical role as a convener, bringing people together and to scale up those solutions, which is very much needed. The third point I wanted to make, and it was mentioned also by the panelists before, to bringing together different ministries within a country, specifically the Ministry of Finance or Public Goods and Ministry of Environment. Because what you've seen here, for instance, in Senegal or in other countries, we also worked in Rwanda, that there's a budgeting, there's green budgeting, climate financing, and then second, there is the greenhouse gas inventory and emissions. And those two usually do not talk to each other. And how can you, because most governments, let's just be honest, most governments are so interested in climate financing because they cannot get any debt. So they basically would like to have more concessional financing when it comes to climate financing. And so, but in order to qualify for climate financing, you have to show that you have a strong NDC and good data on the greenhouse gas emissions. So I think that's a key challenge to bringing more the finance community on board. And then also as catalyst, for instance, it's funded by the Green Climate Fund. So, but the data programs and the digital programs, they are not funded by the Green Climate Fund. At least I'm not familiar with any programs yet. So then the third point was, which the Carbon Lens program showed in Senegal, basically it's powerful to combine local MRV, local digital MRV systems with national NDC platforms. Because we're always wondering, how do the data actually flow into the national systems based on what data? You need local MRV systems to feed the national system. And that also is usually there's a complete disconnect many times. And on the scale, I found it fascinating, and I know it's still a pilot, which now is being scaled up from Indonesia to Senegal, but the combination of different technologies. So basically, combination of ground truth like data, big data, but then satellite imagery and AI. So you can extrapolate from 3 districts to a national system. And that, I think, is very powerful. Now, to conclude, and that's where I think the GDA also can make a really critical difference. What countries have told us is to have it country-driven processes. So these are the examples we saw of country-owned systems. So they're not stored in Bonn or anywhere outside. And then Africans develop it for Africa. This is super important, that it's basically systems developed within the countries with data ownership and country-owned and country-maintained systems. And it does not help if the systems are being hosted or owned in either Europe or North America. And with that, the last point is the strong need for capacity building and technical assistance. But thank you so much for this excellent session, and definitely follow up. Thank you.
Just to quickly say thank you to also the attendees online. It was a very engaging session, and we hope that we can stay connected for the next steps of this Green Digital Action Hub. Thank you, everyone, and have a good afternoon. If you can stay online, actually, if people here would like to take a picture with you, so please don't disconnect. Please wait for us because we will have the screen, so you will be part of the picture. If you can stay, please. Thank you.
So thank you a lot to everyone on site in Belém.
Thank you, Julian.
Thank you, and online. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Yes,